This week's episode of Carver Investigations. Let's join John Carver as he works behind the neon lights of Las Vegas.
The diner was already awake when I walked in. Not busy, just awake. Coffee working through the room the way it worked through people, slow and without ceremony. The counter stools were full of men who looked like they'd been there before dawn and hadn't seen a reason to leave. The booths held couples who weren't talking. That told me enough about the hour. I took the last open seat at the counter. Vinyl cracked under my weight. The counterman slid a cup toward me without asking. I didn't stop him. I'd been turning pages on a calendar. Not in my head. On paper. The kind with numbers you tear off and throw away when they are done with you. Nevada wanted 6 weeks before it would say I was finished. I was giving it what it wanted. The menu was laminated and tired. Eggs, bacon, toast, things that didn't require thought. I was halfway through deciding how hungry I was when someone said my name. Not loud, not friendly. Like he was testing whether it still belonged to me. Carver. I didn't turn right away. People say your name in diners all the time. Usually they want something. Usually they want it from someone else. John Carver. That narrowed it. I turned on the stool and saw a man standing just inside the door, hat still on his head, coat unbuttoned. He looked thinner than I remembered, harder around the eyes, alive in a way I hadn't accounted for. We stared at each other for a second too long, long enough for the room to keep moving without us. Donovan, I said. He smiled like he wasn't sure he'd earned it. You look the same. Then one of us is lying, I said. He stepped closer, took the stool beside mine. The counterman refilled his cup like he'd always been there. I thought you were dead, I said. I get that a lot, Donovan said. December 44. Bassagni. Doctors did their part. I did the rest. I nodded once. That was enough of a eulogy. What are you doing in Vegas? He asked. Waiting, I said. For paperwork. He watched me for a beat. Let it land. 6 weeks, I said. Divorce. Didn't have much choice. Nothing left when I came home. He didn't ask anything after that. He just nodded, like he understood the shape of it even if he didn't know the details. What about you? I said. He hesitated. Not long. Just enough to notice. Federal Bureau of Investigation, he said. Chicago office. That so? After they patched me up. That explains the shoes, I said. He smiled at that. It faded quickly. I've got a meeting, he said, at the Sterling Casino. Good luck, I said. They don't like meetings. He stood, set a couple of bills on the counter. Listen, he said. If you're around later, I'll be at the Flamingo. Drinks. I owe you one for not shooting me just now. I looked back at my coffee. I'll think about it. He paused like he wanted to say more. Then he didn't. He headed for the door and let the heat have him. I turned back to the counter. My eggs were cold. The calendar page in my pocket felt heavier than it had a minute ago. I ordered anyway. Laura Price worked in a room nobody visited unless they had to. No windows. No clocks. Just ledgers, adding machines, and the soft electric hum of money being counted somewhere else. She didn't look like she was doing anything dramatic. That was the trouble. She was calm, careful, already sure. She stood at her supervisor's desk with a ledger open in front of her, one finger marking the line she'd already checked 3 times. It doesn't balance, she said. The man behind the desk didn't look at the book. He looked at her instead, like she'd just told him the sky had opinions. I've checked it, she said. Weekly payroll. Same amount. Every week. It's coming out twice. Everybody thinks they found something, he said. This isn't thinking, she said. It's numbers. That finally got him to glance down. Just long enough. How much? He asked. She told him. He didn't whistle. Didn't blink. Just leaned back in his chair like the air had gone out of something. That's not your problem, he said. It's coming out of the account, she said. That makes it my problem. It makes it finished, he said. Leave it alone. She waited. He didn't soften. She closed the ledger, slow and careful, like it might explode if she rushed it. When she left the room, the numbers stayed where they were. The Flamingo felt like another city. Cooler, softer, air conditioning that didn't apologize for itself. I stood just inside the doors longer than I needed to, letting the cold settle into my clothes. My room didn't have air like this. My room didn't have much of anything. 6 weeks there would have been expensive. 6 weeks here would have been impossible. Donovan had found a table near the bar. He'd already ordered. That figured. Still alive, he said when I sat down. So it seems, I said. He raised his glass. I raised mine just enough not to be rude. You always end up places like this? He asked. Only when I'm waiting for something to finish, I said. He nodded. I remember you did some investigating before the war. Yeah, I said. Atlantic Southern. That was a long time ago. That help you sleep? He asked. No, I said. But it paid. He watched the ice melt. I'm stuck, he said. Chicago closed a case they shouldn't have. Man died on paper. Not in the world. That happens, I said. Not like this, he said. Family starts getting money after the funeral. Same amount. Every week. Wire transfers. I looked at him then. Vegas? I said. Vegas, he said. Casino money. But nobody talks to me. Shocking, I said. He finished his drink. If you hear anything, he said. Anything at all. I didn't answer. He didn't push. Laura didn't like the place, but she understood it. Western Union sat on a corner that caught the sun wrong. Bright outside. Dim inside. A room built for waiting and bad news. The kind of business that did better when people were in a hurry and didn't want to be seen. The men at the counter weren't dressed like gamblers. They were dressed like men who carried money for other men. Work shirts, rolled sleeves, eyes that didn't linger. Laura took a number and stood off to the side where she could see the window without being in it. She kept her purse close. Not because she was afraid of thieves. Because she was holding a piece of the casino's blood. When her number came up, she stepped forward and put her voice where it belonged, polite, small, ordinary. I need to check a transfer, she said. The clerk looked at her over wire-rimmed glasses that had seen too many faces. You sending or receiving? Neither, Laura said. I'm reconciling. That earned her a look like she'd used a foreign language. We don't reconcile, the clerk said. We send. Laura didn't argue. She let the clerk finish the sentence, then placed her request carefully on the counter. I have a weekly payroll deduction, she said, that matches a wire amount, exact to the cent. If that wire is going out from the casino account, it will be here. The clerk's mouth tightened. We don't give out other people's business. I'm not other people, Laura said. I work in payroll. It's my job to know where the money goes. And this money is going somewhere it shouldn't. The clerk reached for a stamp out of habit, then stopped. Names? Laura gave him the payroll name first. He shook his head without looking anything up. No, she gave him the account designation. She had enough to suggest she belonged to it without handing him something that could get him fired. That made him hesitate. Lady, he said quietly, you don't want to play games with this. I don't, Laura said. That's why I'm here instead of playing games back there. The clerk glanced to his left where another employee pretended not to listen. He leaned forward a fraction. You got an amount? He asked. Laura said it once. Clean. Precise. The clerk's expression changed just a hair. Recognition isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just the moment a man decides whether to protect himself or do his job. He pulled a ledger from beneath the counter. Not the public one. The one that stayed out of sight. He ran a finger down a column, lips moving like he was praying. Laura kept her face still. Inside, the number repeated itself like a clock. Finally, the clerk stopped. One wire, he said. Laura waited. Every week, he added. She didn't blink. Same amount, he said. Exact. Laura swallowed once. Recipient. The clerk looked up, eyes sharp. You got business with the recipient. I have business with the money, Laura said. The name is just what someone wrote on the form. He stared at her long enough to make the line behind her shift and sigh. Then he turned the ledger toward himself, not toward her, and spoke the recipient name under his breath. It wasn't the payroll name. It was a different name wearing the same number like a mask. Laura wrote it down on a small pad she'd brought for exactly this. She didn't tear the page out. She didn't look relieved. Relief is for people who find mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. The clerk watched her hand move. You didn't hear it from me, he said. Laura kept her pencil. No, she said. I heard it from the money. She stepped away from the window and let the next customer take her place. Outside, the sun was too bright. Laura blinked once, then started walking. Now she knew the shape of it. Payroll on one side, a wire on the other. 2 names, 1 number, and someone who'd built it that way on purpose. I was waiting outside the office when voices carried down the hall. I told you to leave it alone, a man was saying, loud enough to mean it. You're fired. A door opened. A woman came out with a small cardboard box hugged to her ribs like it was fragile. Young, but not soft. Controlled in the way people get when they've already decided not to give anyone the satisfaction. She didn't look at me. Didn't need to. She kept moving. Behind her, the man's voice followed like a hand trying to grab her by the collar. Don't come back in here, he said. The door shut. A moment later, it opened again and a different face appeared, one of the front office boys with slick hair and a polite smile that never reached his eyes. You the railroad man? He asked. Depends who's asking, I said. He held the smile and chose not to like that answer. He gestured me inside. The boss's office wasn't as big as I expected. That was the first tell. Real power doesn't need square footage. The man behind the desk didn't stand. Charles Moore never rushed for anyone. He had a phone within reach, an ashtray that never cooled, and a window that looked out on nothing important. He studied me the way you study a bill to see if it's counterfeit. Carver, Merced. I didn't show surprise. After what had happened in the back of the house, surprise would have been dishonest. Sir, I said. He waved his hand like he was brushing away smoke. Atlantic Southern, he said. Plains. I let that sit between us. What's a claims man doing in my building? He asked. I'm not here for your building, I said. I'm here for your freight. Freight, he repeated, like it tasted funny. Food, liquor, linens, I said. Anything that comes in a crate. You pay for deliveries that don't always arrive the way the invoice says they do. Sometimes it's the carrier. Sometimes it's the warehouse. Sometimes it's a man with a pencil who knows where to shave. He leaned back. You telling me I'm getting robbed? I'm telling you I've seen it before, I said. And I'm telling you rail numbers don't lie. People do. A second man stood near the door, hands folded. Not security exactly. Something cleaner. Moore's eyes flicked to him, then back to me. Why should I let you anywhere near my back rooms? He asked. Because if you're being shorted, I said, you're paying for air. And if you're not being shorted, then someone's been charging you for the pleasure of thinking you are. He smiled, not friendly. Interested. You talk like you've got time on your hands, he said. I've got 6 weeks of it, I said. Vegas kind of time, he said. Paperwork time, I said. He watched me for a beat, then tapped ash into the tray. You heard my payroll girl screaming in the hall, Moore said. I heard a door open, I said. And you didn't look, he said. I didn't come for a show, I said. The man by the door snorted softly. The boss ignored him. You want access, the boss said. I want to see receiving logs, purchase orders, anything that ties invoice numbers to deliveries, I said. I don't need the cage. I don't need the count room. I need paper that moves with crates. Moore leaned forward, and if the paper doesn't say what you think it should, then I'll tell you where the leak is, I said. He considered that. Then he did something small until he reached for the phone, lifted it, and didn't dial. Just held it there like a thread he didn't need to use. If you're a nuisance, he said, I'll have you out of this building so fast you'll think you dreamed the air conditioning. I don't dream, I said. Moore smiled again. Fine, he said. You get 1 day. You look where I tell you. You don't wonder. You don't ask my people questions they don't know how to answer. And you don't come back with anything that makes me regret opening my door. He set the phone down. You understand? I understand, I said. Good, he said. And Carver? Yes. He nodded toward the hall where the fired woman had disappeared. If you're looking for a man who runs out on his obligations, he said mildly, you should start with people who think they can't be replaced. I didn't respond. He waved me out like I was yesterday's newspaper. In the hallway, the air felt different. Not warmer. Just watched. And the cardboard box the girl had carried was gone. But the echo of it wasn't. Donovan picked a place that served food and didn't ask questions. A booth near the back. A waitress who refilled coffee like it was her job to keep men from talking too loud. He looked better in the dim light. Less like a federal man and more like what he was, a soldier who'd been handed a different uniform. I slid in across from him and set the slip of paper on the table between the sugar caddy and the napkin holder. He didn't reach for it right away. What is it? He asked. A name, I said. His eyes narrowed. From the casino? From the wire, I said. That made him move. He covered the paper with his hand like it might blow away, then lifted it just enough to read. His jaw tightened. Not surprise. Recognition. That's what I keep seeing, he said. The number? I asked. He nodded. Same weekly amount. It shows up like a heartbeat. If I pull on it, the paper goes dead. Chicago calls it closed. Dead man. Case file stamped and shelved. Dead men don't spend money, I said. Not unless they are bad at it, he said. He looked past me at the window like he was watching the street through glass and memory. Name's not the one I started with, he said. Does it need to be? I asked. He gave a short laugh. No doubt it just needs to be the one he's using. He tapped the table once. The family starts getting these wires right after the funeral, he said. Not a lump sum. Not insurance. Weekly. Like somebody put him on a payroll. I didn't comment. Donovan's eyes flicked to my hands. You get anything inside? He asked. Just enough to make them nervous, I said. That's something, he said. It's also a deadline, I said. He nodded. They won't talk to me, he said. Not officially. Not unofficially. I'm not here on paper. That's the problem and the advantage. If I swing at them and miss, I've got nothing to show for it but bruises. You want me to swing, I said. He didn't deny it. I want you to listen, he said. And look where you can. I'm chasing a man who learned how to die without dying. Those men don't stay alone forever. Somebody feeds them. Somebody launders. Somebody keeps them in suits. He lowered his voice without changing his tone. And if you find him, he said, don't bring him to the casino. Bring him to me. I nodded once. The waitress dropped 2 plates between us like she'd been there the whole time. Donovan stared at the food like it offended him. I thought you were dead, I said. He looked up. The old war humor tried to return and failed. Don't start believing everything that gets written down, he said. The back of the house didn't smell like money. It smelled like cleaning fluid, damp concrete, and old smoke that never quite left the walls. The kind of place built to be forgotten once you stepped out of it. The lie held at first. That was the dangerous part. Doors opened that weren't supposed to. File drawers slid when I touched them. People nodded because they'd already been told to. Then the questions started, not the kind you answer, the kind that let you know someone else already has. A man I hadn't seen before stopped me near a service elevator. Asked my name again. Asked it like it mattered this time. Another man joined us. Older, better dressed. He didn't look at me when he spoke. Atlantic Southern, he said. You were there before the war. I didn't react. I let him keep going. Plane side, he said. Rail loss. Damage. Theft. You left in 41. That landed heavier than a hand on the shoulder. I smiled the way you do when you realize the room has been listening longer than you thought. Sounds like you know more about my career than I do. He finally looked at me then. Calm. Curious. We make calls, he said. We ask questions. Another man closed the hallway door behind us. Not hard. Just enough. They walked me the rest of the way without touching me. Down a corridor I hadn't planned on taking. No signs. No windows. Just a door at the end that opened before I reached for it. The room was smaller than I expected. One table. A couple of chairs. No clocks. No paperwork. No reason to be there unless someone wanted you there. They sat me down. This time they took the chair with them. No shouting. No threats. Just time. The well-dressed man took a seat across from me. So, he said, why does a railroad claims man who hasn't worked a rail in years walk into our house asking the wrong questions? That was the moment. The one you feel more than here. The point where the wrong answer turns into a hole in the desert. I didn't give them Donovan. I didn't give them Chicago. I didn't give them a badge. I'm looking for a man, I said. He waited. Man who skipped out on his wife and kid, I said. Left them with nothing but stories and overdue bills. He studied me like he was deciding whether that kind of story belonged to me. He worked freight, I said. Or he did. Moves around. Changes names. Thought he could disappear. Silence stretched. Not hostile. Evaluative. I follow paper, I said. That's what I know how to do. The man leaned back. Romantic, he said. Or stupid, someone else offered. Either way, the man said, standing, you're done here. He nodded once. The chair was returned. They didn't shove me out a front door. They didn't want a scene. Scenes are for tourists. They walked me through a different hallway than the one I'd come in through. Longer, better lit, designed to be remembered. Every turn felt like a lesson. You were allowed in here once, and you won't be again. No one spoke. At the service exit, the well-dressed man stopped me. The same calm face. The same voice that didn't need volume. If you're telling the truth, he said, you won't find what you're looking for here. And if I'm not? I asked. He smiled without humor. Then you already did. A guard opened the door. Heat rushed him like it had been waiting. I stepped outside. The door closed behind me. This time it stayed closed. The strip at night was bright enough to make you feel invisible. Light everywhere, and none of it meant for you. I found more 2 blocks off the main drag where the neon thinned out and the sidewalks got honest. She was walking fast with her box tucked under one arm like she didn't trust the city not to reach for it. She wasn't alone. 2 men were with her, one close enough to be in her space, the other behind them by half a step, watching the street like he owned it. They weren't rough. Rough is noisy. These men were quiet. That was worse. Laura stopped near a storefront that had gone dark for the night. The man nearest her spoke without moving his hands. You had a good job, he said. Laura's voice stayed level. I did my job. You did too much, he said. I didn't move closer. Not yet. I watched their spacing. Their exits. The way the second man kept his right side angled away like he had something under his jacket he didn't want to show. Laura shifted the box to her other arm. Slow. I'm not going back, she said. You're not going anywhere, the first man said. That was when Donovan came into it out of the dark like he'd been there all along. He didn't flash a badge. He didn't have to. He carried himself like a man who'd done violence for a living and learned afterward how to keep it folded away. Evening, he said. The 2 men looked at him and recalculated. Donovan's hand stayed in his coat pocket. His voice stayed mild. Somebody paying you for this? He asked. No one answered. Donovan smiled faintly. That's what I thought. The first man backed off a half step. Not retreat. Adjustment. The second man's eyes went to Donovan's pocket. Donovan held the pocket still. You boys want to make this a federal problem? He asked. The words were soft, but the room around them went quiet. The first man shook his head once. We're just talking, he said. Then you're done, Donovan said. They left without hurrying. Men like that don't run unless they are bleeding. Laura didn't sag. She just let out a breath she hadn't advertised. Miss Price, Donovan said. Laura's eyes narrowed. I didn't tell you my name. I'm good with paper, Donovan said. Laura looked at me then. Really looked. You were outside his office, she said. I was, I said. And you didn't say anything, she said. I didn't know what to say, I said. Now I do. She hugged the box closer. What do you want? She asked. The truth, I said. And the name you wrote down. Laura's jaw tightened. You're late, she said. Yeah, I said. I'm working on that. The man didn't stay in Vegas once he knew someone was looking. Men who fake their deaths don't get sentimental about scenery. Donovan and I didn't go back to the casino. Not after the hallway, not after the door. We did it the old way through paper and patience and the kind of questions you ask people who aren't paid to lie. Or helped without meaning to at first. She'd memorized more than she thought. Names that didn't match. Dates that lined up too neatly. A recipient who didn't exist in one book but lived comfortably in another. We found him in a place that didn't have neon. A rented room behind a small apartment building where the paint peeled like it was tired. He'd bought anonymity the way other men bought steaks regularly and without thought. Donovan knocked. No answer. He knocked again, harder. A curtain twitched. Donovan took a step back so the man inside could see the shape of him through the glass. Open up, he said. The door opened a crack. A man's face appeared, younger than the reports, cleaner than the rumors, eyes that had practiced being worn. What's this? The man asked. Donovan didn't raise his voice. You're not dead, he said. And I'm tired. The man's gaze flicked past Donovan to me, then to Laura standing back on the sidewalk with her box. He recognized her before she recognized him. That told me everything I needed to know. He tried to close the door. Donovan's hand moved, fast and economical. The crack became a cuff. The cuff became a man turned around. No heroics, no speeches, just the sound of metal finding skin. Name? Donovan asked. The man hesitated. Donovan leaned in. The one you're using, he said. The man gave it. Donovan nodded once, like checking a box. When it was over, the street went back to pretending it didn't care. 2 days later, the wires stopped. Chicago would reopen the file and pretend it had been their idea. That was fine. Donovan didn't need credit. He needed the man. He met me once more before he left town. Same kind of place as before, quiet, cheap, out of the way. He slid an envelope across the table. What's that? I asked. Expense money, he said. I didn't ask for it, I said. I know, he said. That's why I'm offering. I didn't touch it. He watched me for a beat, then pulled it back. If you'd had a PI license, he said, I could have paid you clean. I looked at my coffee. The calendar page in my pocket had gotten thinner since the diner. The weeks were still there. Outside, Vegas kept breathing. Laura stood by the window, her box on the floor at her feet like she carried it long enough. What happens to me? She asked. Donovan didn't answer. He didn't have one. I did, but it wasn't the kind you say out loud in a diner. Not yet. Donovan stood. Try not to die, he said. I'm not planning on it, I said. He left. The door swung shut behind him. Laura and I sat in the quiet for a moment longer than we needed to. The case was closed. The city wasn't. And I had 6 weeks of paperwork left to fill with something that didn't feel like waiting.
Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode of Carver Investigations.